Hey everybody, this is Perch, and the news right now is that the CW is up for sale. Now, some of you may be wondering the what. I know there is a pretty global group of people who listen. The CW is a TV network that produces a lot of teen angsty shows. I think is probably the best way to put it. My fondest memories of the CW were watching Smallville many years ago, and I always liked I liked the beginning. That show went off the rails, but I thought Lex Luthor, Michael was doing a good job there, and I always I was one of those people who was like, "What are you doing chasing after Lana? Lana is boring as stale toast. You got Chloe right there. Go for Chloe. Take some of that red kryptonite, beat some stuff up. Go with Chloe." Little did I know Chloe was actually involved in some weird sex cult, and kind of puts the whole thing in perspective now. But regardless. The, there's like 5% of my audience knows what I'm talking about. They're like, "Yep," and then the rest of you are like, "What? Why do we do this on this show?" Regardless, the CW is up for sale. It's early. There's been a lot of videos, a lot of crying emoji faces, and and people with like horror, and the general theme on social media, on YouTube, on video channels is that the station CW went too woke and therefore failed. And I think there's a number of reasons why it failed. And I bet most people are thinking that I would say, no, it's not because of that at all. But it is a little bit because of that. Um, not necessarily the woke part. I mean, yes, the woke part, but did that it? Well, put it this way. I'm going to read this statement from the CEO, which in many ways identifies the problem in a sentence. So he says, so what does this mean for us right now? Meaning the CW is up for sale. And here's a sentence that kind of reveals the answer. It means we must continue to do what we do best, make the CW as successful and vibrant as we have always done. Well, here's the problem. It wasn't vibrant. What is vibrant? That means new, exciting, different, diverse. And when I say diverse here, I mean diverse content. I don't mean like, hey, let's insert more of this particular race into this show that has the exact same plot, theme, feeling, atmosphere as everything else. That's the opposite of diverse. That's just doing the same thing over and over and over. And that's what the CW was. It was often the same exact thing over and over and over again. And the problem is most people grow tired of the same thing. So what happened is the CW had a bigger audience once upon a time. It had people that would come to that show and or come to that network and be interested in it, whether it was Supernatural or Arrow or any of the number of things. I was going to say Legends of Tomorrow, but I mean, come on, really? Sorry. It was a great and wonderful show for several of you, I'm sure. But it as a network, it just kept putting out the same stuff. It was the opposite of vibrant. If they want to succeed, that is what they need to do: make the shows successful and vibrant. But they didn't. So you're seeing people say the network was with too woke. I would argue that there was, however you label woke, what is that storytelling method? I think that requires digging down deeper beyond the usual talking points. But there is a theme. There is a type of that show. It becomes a very kind of preachy show. I'm getting to another point that's going to, I don't know, probably either confuse or irritate most of you in a moment. But that type of show tends to have very limited appeal, and even if people like it, it doesn't last long because nobody really likes to be preached to over and over and over. It gets tiresome if you can predict the plot. And the problem with a lot of stories, whether they're comics, whether they're movies, whether they're shows, whatever else, that when they get plastered with the woke label, a lot of people immediately pivot to racism and bigotry and transphobia and all these kinds of names that go along with that argument. And so the argument proceeds. But what gets missed is that the storytelling is often extremely limited. The actual theme of what's going on, you can predict a mile away. That's the problem. It's very predictable. To me, I think, I've done videos on this before, But in many ways, you can the death of certain comics, certain themes, isn't necessarily to call it woke or to call it alt right or whatever else. It would be to call it predictable. If it's predictable, it then leads to another word that's even worse, which is boring. And that's what a lot of the shows and the themes and the things were. You knew what was going to happen. You didn't have to watch the show. You'd be like, today Batwoman is fighting a misunderstood teen. It's like, all right, I know what that show's going to be. I've seen it before, and that's death. There's another big thing, by the way, that I think plays into this and is probably a much bigger deal than just the content is boring. The problem with the content being boring on the network is that people don't show up to watch it. And if they don't show up to watch it, they don't have an audience. That becomes the problem. There's a lot of people I know who like, in theory, or they'll say, I like the content on the CW, but when you press them on it, they like the idea, they like the pitch, they like the general plot idea. They don't actually watch the show. They like the synopsis. But the other kind of really bad thing for the CW that goes without saying is we live in a world where you have to have a really killer network with good deals and good ownership, or be a streaming service. Right now, the way people are consuming and watching shows, streaming has disrupted the traditional network model. It always meant, when that really took hold, that the smaller networks they're gonna struggle. They either had to find a really key niche for themselves and just veer into it, or they were gonna get wiped out. And there was no way. Even if the shows were vibrant, it would have been really hard for the CW to survive unless they owned every single piece of their content and were able to make money off of basically licensing them off to streaming services after they aired on the network, which I would call a pretty lousy existence. It's basically you're a loss leader network for licensing deals. I mean, I'm being too hard on it. There's companies certainly where that's, people make money and that's survival, and that's their business model. But if you find yourself backed into that place, I mean, you're not happy. That's not a great place to wind up. And so CW, not being Netflix, not being Amazon Prime, producing a lot of content for Netflix, but even then, the stuff they produced for Netflix was all, for lack of a better word, remnant. It wasn't compelling. Netflix prioritized their shows or things they invested or paid more into, and the rest just kind of landed there. Same thing on Amazon Prime. So what you're left with is, okay, even when you get that licensing deal, you're not gaining a lot of viewers who are then going to come to your network to see the show. And they didn't. But fundamentally, I think now I need to get to that point that I think was going to maybe irritate people. I think there's this misunderstanding when people say we need shows that are anti-woke. This is not all of you, and I'm not speaking for anyone in particular. I just see this point of view put out where they say, we need anti-woke shows that feature, conservative values, have Republicans, prioritize, religion as a part of that show. And I wouldn't call that anti-woke. I think that's just a different niche. See, I think the solution to a boring, predictable storytelling is to have it not be boring and not be predictable, not to just take the opposite political party and say this show is about those people. That I think would wind up in the exact same place. I think if you had a network, so picture the whatever the opposite of the CW is politically and socially. I don't know. Maybe they got a lot of westerns that I don't know. Chuck Norris has got a show. I'm not even sure what that would look like, but I don't think it would do much better, or maybe not better at all, because it's still, if everything else was kept the same, meaning it was same kind of predictable storyline, same preaching, just to a different ideology. Nobody wants that either. People want unpredictable, to the quote the CEO, vibrant shows, things that are actually, you don't see them coming. They make you think. They make you anxiously await the next week, the next airing. One of the reasons why Lost did so well for ABC is because it ended on cliffhangers. It's like there was a hook there. You wanted to know, are these people going to get off the island? What's going on? Is the island magical? What's this hatch down in the ground? I don't know, what's happening. And then the show basically tinkered with that unpredictability and flashbacks and everything else to the point that it stopped being unpredictable and it became extremely predictable. And once it did that, it was ratings sagged. It was over. People didn't care as much. And it's you have to keep an element of high interest, high I don't know what's going to happen, and so I need to tune in to find out. Same thing goes for wrestling, by the way. Every single time you've had a boom in wrestling ratings and people watching and people paying attention and showing up, it's because they honestly feel like they don't know what's going to happen next. As soon as you basically tell the viewers that, hey, Roman Reigns he's gonna come out on top no matter what, nobody people stop watching. The WWE right now is extremely predictable, and oh look, you know what's going to happen, and so interest sags. To me, I think the biggest negative about woke storytelling is that it's predictable, and because it's predictable, it's dull. It's funny because I think people get tied up around this argument, and they'll often people will bring up movies and shows and other things that have diverse, quote unquote, diverse themes, and they're fine. There's certainly tons of I mean, look, Alien and Aliens. I mean, look at Aliens. Aliens is interesting. You could describe it, and I've seen somebody describe it this way, which is a strong feminist goes on a sci-fi journey with a bunch of toxic white men who are summarily murdered while she saves a little girl from man-eating aliens. I saw someone describe aliens that way, and I was like, it's a weird way to describe it. But I guarantee you talk to a lot of the people who decry woke storytelling, and they will say, hey, the Aliens is a great movie. It was a great movie. It was done well. It was unpredictable. It had a lot of good sci-fi elements to it. It was good. It was a good film. Um, it's not just kind of checking a box of demographics makes it woke or anti-woke or whatever you want to call it. It's how predictable, how boring is it? How preachy is it? So if you just replace one political party for the other, you've done nothing. You've created a weird little experiment, but you're not going to get those viewers. Anyway, I don't know. A lot of people are going, "Oh my God, can you believe the CW is falling?" Yeah, I can believe it. Pretty much anyone could believe this. Where was the CW going to go? As more and more people cut cables, what was going to happen there? And CW is rolling out the same assortment of content they've rolled out for the last 10 years. I mean, how did it survive this long? I guess is my question, but I don't know. I'm sure there's several of you who are big CW fans right now who are aghast, I tell you, at this horrible description of the network. So let me know, let me have it in the comments, and let me know what you think of my little theory here. And thanks for listening.